You know, after Labor Day, many pleasure boaters wind things down for the season. This means it's time to start thinking about your annual engine maintenance. Now, if you have a MerCruiser or a Volvo Sterndrive powered boat and prefer to do your own maintenance work, then this video is for you. Today, I'm going to compare prices across various online merchants to show you which ones offer the best prices for the things that you will need. I'll review prices first for MerCruiser, followed by Volvo. And at the end of the video, I will share 6 tips to save you time and money when shopping online, so you'll want to stick around for that. But before we dive into it, I want to preface by saying that I'm only examining prices for OEM items. That is Mercury, Quicksilver, or Volvo branded items. I did not look at aftermarket brands such as Sierra, since I cannot assess the quality of those particular items. So let's start by looking at oil prices for MerCruiser engines first.
Okay, so here is a comparison of the oil prices for a MerCruiser Sterndrive engine. The Mercury Owner's Manual recommends full synthetic oil for engines with emission controls or catalyst. However, Mercury full synthetic oil is hard to find, and so I'm using the next best thing, which is their synthetic blend, which is also what I use in my boat. Now, this chart depicts the price per gallon for MerCruiser or Quicksilver synthetic blend as of September 2nd, 2025, which is when I'm shooting this video. In some cases, the oil might be branded Quicksilver, and in other cases, it might be branded Mercury. But if both were offered by a given merchant, I just selected whichever was cheaper. I'll talk more about that at the end of today's video. As you can see, Wholesale Marine and Boats.net had the best prices per gallon of oil for a MerCruiser at $42 per gallon. Marine Parts Source was just a little bit higher at $44.
Next, let's take a look at the cost for the basket of items you need to do your annual MerCruiser maintenance. At a minimum, I think you should change your oil, your gear lube, your fuel filter, and your oil filter. Now, for this analysis, I assumed a MerCruiser 5.0 liter engine, which requires 5 quarts of oil. In this case, I'm going to be using synthetic blend, 2 quarts of gear lube, an oil filter, along with a fuel filter.
Now, this chart shows the total cost for the basket of items needed to do your annual maintenance. That is the aggregate cost for 5 quarts of synthetic blend, 2 quarts of gear lube, 1 oil filter, and 1 fuel filter. Once again, as you can see here, Wholesale Marine has the best price overall at $109 for the full set of supplies. Marine Parts Source is only $5 higher at $114, and Boats.net is pretty competitive as well at $116, although I should point out that with Boats.net, the total amount here is below the threshold needed for free shipping, so you would have to put a few more items in your cart to avoid the shipping charges. Now let's take a look at the prices for Volvo, and then I'll wrap up with some shopping tips. Here's a comparison of prices for Volvo full synthetic 10W40 oil as of September 2nd, 2025. And as the first thing you'll note is that there are fewer choices here than there was with MerCruiser. And if you are a Volvo owner, you likely already know that. Marine Parts Source has the lowest price for Volvo oil at $46 per gallon. However, the prices for most merchants were pretty comparable with the exception of Wholesale Marine, which is a bit ironic since they happen to have the best price on oil for a MerCruiser. To compare the total price for maintenance supplies, I assumed a 5.3 liter Volvo, which takes 6 quarts of oil, 3 quarts of gear lube, along with an oil filter and fuel filter. And when you combine the cost for those 6 quarts of oil and the gear lube and the oil filter and fuel filter, Marine Parts Source had the lowest total cost at $173 for the complete set. Liters RPM was not too far behind at $181. Note, I didn't include Wholesale Marine in the total cost comparison, and that's because they didn't carry the Volvo oil filter, and so for the necessary for the 5.3 liter engine, so that's why I excluded them. Now let's touch briefly on shipping, because this could impact which merchant is most economical to buy from, especially if you only need a few things. Of course, Amazon, and Walmart have kind of a unique shipping policies. In some cases, it's free depending on whether you have an Amazon Prime membership or Walmart Plus, or it may be free depending on the size of the order and who's doing the fulfillment. But for most dedicated marine parts companies, they will offer free shipping with purchases of $100 or greater. You can see several of those listed here. There are a few exceptions to that, however. Boats.net requires purchases of $149 or greater to qualify for free shipping, whereas Bass Pro Shops and now PartsView offers free shipping on purchases of $50 or greater, which could be very handy if you only have to buy a couple of things. Just a quick recap of the best prices for oil and total maintenance supplies for both MerCruiser and Volvo. The numbers in red represent the merchants with the lowest prices. The numbers in black are those who also had low prices, that were, say, within $3 of the lowest price per gallon of oil, or within $10 in terms of the total cost for the supplies. And as you can see here, Wholesale Marine had the best prices in general for MerCruiser for both their oil and for the supplies in aggregate. Boats.net's oil prices were comparable as well. But just remember, again, you have an additional fee for shipping if you don't hit that $149 threshold. For Volvo, the Marine Parts Source has the best prices for both oil and for total supplies, but Leader's RPM is not too far behind. Obviously, if you need assistance or want an item the same day, your best bet is to visit a dealer or West Marine or Bass Pro retail store if you own a MerCruiser. You'll pay a little extra, but it's often worth it, especially if you're on a tight schedule.
Finally, I want to share some key tips to save you time and money when shopping online. First and most importantly, be sure to search by part numbers, not keywords, unless it's a general merchandise site, such as Amazon.com or Walmart. Most marine part merchants do a terrible job of identifying items by keywords, and so you could end up wasting a lot of time and incur a lot of frustration if you attempt to search in that fashion. Now, if you own a MerCruiser and don't know the part numbers for the things you need, I have created a separate video where I'll walk you through how to find them. So I'll leave a link to that in the video description. The second tip is to keep a list of part numbers and even superseded or previous part numbers in a spreadsheet or a boat maintenance app such as YachtWave. Some sites won't find a part unless you use the most recent number. Others might list the items separately under the old and new part numbers, and sometimes the price differs, with the older price oftentimes being cheaper. By the way, one of the things I really like about the Leader's RPM site is that they often display the current and superseded part numbers, which is really convenient. Third, for Mercury or MerCruiser part numbers, ignore any prefixes such as 35- or 92-. For example, here's a part number for a water separating fuel filter, and here's the part number up here. But when you go to search for this item, you should enter the number 802893T. You would ignore that 35-. That 35- designates a product class, but online merchants often don't recognize them. And if you leave those in when doing your search, there's a good chance you will not find the item that you're looking for. Fourth, Mercury and Quicksilver supplies are exactly the same. All that differs is the packaging, so buy whichever one is cheapest. The reason they both exist is because Mercury is intended for authorized Mercury dealers only, whereas Quicksilver can be distributed more broadly, which is why you often find Quicksilver items in places like Walmart. Fifth, it's often cheaper to round up to buy gallons instead of quarts. For example, it might cost less or very close to the same to buy a gallon of oil instead of 3 quarts, so be sure to check for that. And then finally, some merchants carry an oil change kit, which contains the oil and oil filter you need for your MerCruiser engine. While this might be a minor convenience, I have found that in most cases, you actually end up paying more for the kit versus buying the items separately. Well, if you follow these tips, it may save you a little bit of money and a lot of aggravation. Let me know in the comments section where you like to purchase your engine maintenance supplies. And if you like this video and found it helpful, please click on that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel to get my weekly tips and insights to help you purchase, equip, and maintain your boat. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the water.